welcome today in our this lecture on mining machinery. I hope you have now studied about this introduction of mining machinery. Now, in this class we will be discussing about the machine elements. So, all these mining machinery, they are made of number of machine elements. So, I understand that you have studied your basic mechanical engineering and electrical engineering part. So, before going to the discussions of the machinery, we will have to just know that what are the important elements that makes these machines. And we have discussed about how the mining machinery are different from other machinery. We have discussed about the special requirements and characteristics of this machinery. So, these machines are built and designed with certain components. Now, how those components will be working, to know much better way, we will have to have a basic understanding of the machine elements. Though we are not going to the design aspects of these elements, but just for a general information, you must go through these areas. After this lecture, you will be able to name the different elements of a machine, and you will be able to explain the basic purposes of these elements, and also you will have to develop a learning strategy for this mining machinery. How, in which way you will be exactly getting your expertise developed on using the knowledge of mining machinery for real life business. So, for that, you know that mining machinery, like any other machines, is made of these components, which we are calling it as a machine element. Now, the machine exactly, it is made up of some point of operation or functional units. So, that is any machine. See, even if you talk of your sewing machine, in that what is there? There is a point of operation is the needle, which is moving up and down, and that is the main functional unit. And there is a power transmission system is there in your sewing machine. When the tailor is pedaling from there, how with a you can see that there is a belt or a rope they use for transmitting that power, and ultimately that your power from the pedal is coming to the needle. And then there is a operation control. You can see that in your sewing machine, you can adjust that what should be the length of the needle work. So, that means there is in any machine, whether it is your washing machine, whether it is a truck, or whether it is a mining machinery, it will be comprising of this a point of operation, where the main functional elements will be interacting with your purpose, and then there will be a power transmission and operating controls. Now, if we see a mining machinery, or it is also a construction machinery of a modern excavator, this Komatsu company, that is one of the biggest mining machinery manufacturing company, which have developed now all these manless that is automated trucks and many other things, that they have introduced the advanced technology into the machinery. Now, you can see here in that as a basic elements, I told there will be a point of operations. As you can see here, there is a in the you can see this point of operation here is the bucket, so that any excavation work will be done from here. And as I have said, that control, they have got a lot of things, that these operators which is controlling from here, they have got an intelligent machine unit, which you can see here. This intelligent machine unit is exactly operating by keeping different sensors at different places, and then it exactly gives a warning and signal to the operator, and then he can exactly work over here. Similarly, this whole system, they have got number of things you can see here, that for controlling it, there are some sensor locations at different locations. These sensors are kept, by which they are exactly global navigation of satellite systems they are getting. So, that means this shovel, it knows that where the dumpers are there, when this truck will be arriving to it, so that it should be ready for loading. Then by before the truck comes, it can prepare its other activities, so that the optimality in the operations can be achieved. And here the third unit is your main diesel engine and hydraulic system, which is the diesel engine is here, which is giving the main power, and the hydraulic system is there, which is exactly generating that power for working, and from there the fluid is going. You can see the for whole control of this, whether the boom is raising and lowering, whether this your bucket is giving a rolling back or this resting actions, or this whole thing is exactly giving its expansion, depending on that how it is working. So, now you understand that this this is you can go now to this type of machines exactly will be working on the number of different systems you can see here. Okay, I'll have to so you can see this machine components and machine elements. If you see here, there are different structural components and the control mechanisms, because when we have said that this any machines are having the main three components, some structural components, that means all these devices, all its the machines so that it is to stand and to move and to work, for that structurally it should be suitable for working, and that is comprising of the frame members, bearings, axles, splines, fasteners, seals and lubricants. Lot of things are there in making that structure. And that control of movement, that is where you will have to how the power will be given and it will be going, that is done by your this gear trains, belts, chain drive, linkages, cam and follower systems and brakes, clutches. These the basic machine elements you might have seen over there. Now, see in a machine elements, and there are lever, gears, cams, cranks, springs, belts and wheels, which you study in your second year mechanical engineering papers. These elements are taught, and then machine parts you need to know. In your engineering drawing class, you might have drawn these nut, bolts, screw, keys, and then some of these main components of basic parts like crankshaft, that excavator buckets, coupling, clutch. These are some of the basic components. Depending on the specific machinery, you will have to learn. So, now while constructing the machine, you will be finding that there will be different type of connections are there, different parts will have to be connected together. Now, there comes this joints, and while connecting or jointing these two different parts, there can be a permanent joint or there can be a detachable joints. In the permanent joints, you might have already heard and seen many places that the welding joints are there, that is permanently you are joining by welding. You may be knowing that this welding is one of the very important and very lucrative job. Exactly, a welder, if he is a very good welder, specific welder like underwater welder, they earn about more than 7,000 this dollar, US dollar per year. So, an ordinary worker and then this welder, if you think of that welding of difficult metals like the aluminum or aluminum alloy, they cannot be very easily welded. So, some special type of welding systems are there. Similarly, some joints are there called riveted joint or interference fit. These are permanently joined, and then there are some you temporarily, you have all experience of these things. You know about screw, bolts and nuts. You have seen different pins, connecting pins. You have seen, I think, in your watch, steel watch. you can see that what different straps are connected with a small pin. That is also just a jointing different straps on your watch chain, that is also by pin. Similarly, there is a wedge type of joints are there, clamps are there. You have seen your clamp, I think in your engineering drawing class, when you were fixing your this drawing sheet onto the board, it was also a clamp. Same thing is there in a, if you go to big machines and big construction sites, there will be different type of clamps. Then there is a spline, you can see here where two parts are to be fitted. Inside this there is a, these are called as spline type of joints. So, these different joints are there. Now, what is a riveted joint? A rivet is a small piece of item that is like that, it has got a rivet head, a rivet shank and rivet tail. Now, two plates are there, that is if this is to be joined together, that what they do, just put this your rivet inside and then you connect it there, shielding it over there, you join it. If you have seen the Howrah bridge, you might have seen that lot of protruded portions are coming, those are riveted joint in those which are made in the early of the 20th century. That type of bridges were constructed which are still going strong and then very good. Now, those riveted joints, because in why exactly those bridges are riveted joint, not welded, because the bridges and all that thing, they undergo lot of vibrations. Now, wherever there is a huge vibrations are there it is exactly the best way to give a permanent joint is the riveted joint. The riveted joint can be by two ways. One is called your lap joint, when two plates are just overlapped each other and then you are giving a joint, or it called a butt joint. In a butt joint, this plate, say the green one and this violet one, these two plates are to be joined end to end. Then what is done, a additional plate is kept over here and then we have got this two row of that your rivets are done together. This type of joints are called butt joints. So, you can see here that the riveted lap joint and butt joints, they can do, that can be done, the butt joint can be done giving two plates, one at the top, one at the bottom, by that way. So, there could be a different type of requirements depending on the type of strength it is required. You may have different type of riveted joints like your lap joints or butt joints. Now, can you see that this type of, I think this is a Howrah bridge, you might have seen over here. There you can see a lot of these butt joints are there. Now, this is exactly that truss, or in a cranes you can see in mining machinery like your drag line, where there is a big boom, that many a time there are some riveted joints are there, because those machines are also subjected to very high this vibration load. Now, in sometimes where you use rivet, because the aluminum alloys, as I said, cannot be very easily welded. So, that is why the use this riveted joint. Now, this when you are to, you cannot weld if a plastic sheets and a steel plate, or a steel plate and an asbestos sheet. So, this type of mixed material, when they are to be jointed, there is a special type of welding is done there, but that in and when those special type of welding is not there, they can be also riveted joint. So, these riveted joints are better resistance to vibrations and impact load, better performance with thin plates, more reliable under vibration and impact load. They are having also better for joints of non-ferrous metals. So, does not have any thermally induced stress. Exactly, you will find, we will talk about that when you do welding, it is exactly lot of thermally induced stresses are there. So, the adequacy of the riveted joint can be easily estimated by observing the joints. You can see the joint, and by seeing that you can know that whether it is exactly okay or not. But in a welded joint, sometimes there could be inside, it could be very weak, or it can be having some problem, we do not know, and then by just simply the inspecting, you may not be able to find out that a particular joint has become very weak. Now, why these joints and then a machine is very important is, I tell you a small example. that sometimes I remember a bucket wheel excavators, that big boom, one boom just collapsed because the joint there in that particular joint where it was made, it was weak, there was a crack, and when they were making a platform to repair that crack, at that time when there was a pylon structures, there was a boom like that, and while doing these inspections for cracking, this whole thing collapsed. The engineers also died, and that machines of about more than few crores of machines were got damaged. So that's why in while constructing big machines, the joints are very important, and you need to study these things whenever you study a machinery. Now this when you dismantle this riveted joints, parts are not damaged because you need to just take it over there. But one thing is there, you will find lot of holes will be made. Exactly, when you make a riveted joints, you are making a lot of holes in the main parts. So that way it is the parts get damaged. Moreover, as you have seen, whether it is a lap joint or butt joint, that you use an extra plate over there. So when you put an extra plate, that means you are going to increase the weight of the machine. And if any machinery which is a moving machinery, if the total weight increases, you can easily understand that the power required for moving that machine will be increasing. So that's why if you are having a very riveted joints, the weight of the machines will be more. So that could be a disadvantage. Moreover, while you are determining that what will be the diameter of that rivet, it depends on the thickness of the plate by the formula as you have seen, that is your 6 times the square root of the thickness. So that's why to have a diameter, that means additional material are more. So while exactly if you go for inspecting a machines and then you want to see that whether it is really its a reliability or its risk you want to analyze, you need to understand that exactly even the diameter of the rivets are properly made or not. So when you will be studying mining machinery, and particularly you want to know the safety of the machine, you want to assess the risk, at that time this basic knowledge will be of very importance. Similarly, as I said that welding also can be done by a different ways. So there are exactly in this diagram you can see how plate A and plate B, they can be a square butt joint, that is butt joint, end to end jointing is done. So there is a V joint, say these two plates have got a big grooves, and in that groove they have done the welding over here. So similarly, there is a single U butt joint, there is a groove kept over here, and then this your additional your welding material they have got fused over here. So that lap joint and butt joint, and then sometime T weld, that is a depending on the type of the machines you will be constructing, you can have a different type of weld. Now, how to carry out such welding, how you will be exactly two metal parts will be joined over here. There is a wide range of methods of doing this welding over here. You may be knowing about there is a gas welding, resistance welding, arc welding, never welding, solid state welding, and this whole welding itself is a subject in mechanical engineering. A lot of people they develop over here, and in new techniques and new methods all the time going on. Say for example, now we are having say HPD that is your plastic sheets. Now how the plastics can be welded, there are some special devices are there. So this strongest weld, that is when they used exactly tungsten inert gas, this gas tungsten arc TIZ, that is tungsten inert gas welding. It is the strongest type of weld it can be, but it is very difficult to do it. To that welder, he need to get this expertise, and that's why they are very highly paid. Now here many a times when many of your students that studying engineering, not necessarily that they can be always a designer and all that thing. If some that engineer, they after second year or third year, if they feel that they are not going to get a very good degree, they can easily go for say now with the new education policy, you can go out, learn welding, and it will be very good to few thousands of dollars can be earned by those special type of welding. For example, this underwater welding I said, or that plastic welding, or that welding for the aviation industry, or welding for the making rockets, and there are some very special type of welding. Some of the things, if you want to go this multiple exit and entry to engineering courses, some people may start that. That's why this welding is a good area where people can work. So now we have discussed the things. So it will be an exercise for you. Please make as an assignment how to differentiate the welded and riveted joint. I have already said some of the points regarding this, but that as welded joint, they do not have the drilling. That's why they are lighter and there is a less operation. For if you do a rivet joint, then you will have to make so many holes, then you will have to make so many plates, so many precision working will be required. So there is a large number of manpower is also required and material is also required. So developing a rivet joint will be very costly for any bridge or any machines. Now there is the load carrying capacity, that strength, it normally that after the welding you may get almost that the original one, but in case of rivet it will get something reduced. Similarly, that is the many welding processes like your fusion welding and all, they change the metallurgical properties because they subjected to very high heat and all that. So because of that there will be some changes. You may find out that if you have studied in your engineering materials class in your second year basic engineering program, there you know what is the carbon steel, and that steel have got a different behavior when they are produced at different temperatures. So if you know that iron carbon diagram, and then at a different heat there will be, the steel may get change its whole metallurgical properties. So this is a case with a welding, but such type of things will not be happening in case of your riveted joint. So you can see that there are you can get a continuous type of joint in case of welding, but in case of rivet, as because you are having these holes and then you are putting the rivets, it is not a continuous one. So that is why the welded joint will be leak proof, but riveted joint will not be a leak proof one. So that is the weight and that power consumption for the moving machines, as I have already said. So that is the time required for welding is less. So there are many advantages of welding, at the same time there are some advantages of rivet also. So you need to have a general idea that wherever it is selected, particularly if you are working with a company to in the designing sections, then you will have to go much more about. But if you are as a sales representative of a very big mining machinery company, then when you will be working in the field, people will have to be convinced about why your design is better. So that is why you will have to have these basic informations of the basic engineering information. Now that, as I said, that there are other joints as your detachable joints. Now in the detachable joints you can see that there is a key, wedge joints are there. They have just put the wedge inside it and they made it tight. You have seen many things in the carpentry, you can see such type of joints in many tables and chairs. They make without any nail, they can make with a detachable wedge joints. Then there can be key joints is that exactly how a shaft and its housing, they are connected together. Then spline, you can see there is a grooves and the splines are fitting over there. Clamp you have seen, nut and bolts you have seen. I think this type of the diagram, it is shown over here. You can see that this by nut and bolts, these are, say, in a bridge, such type of joints are also there. So this is a detachable joint, but you can see here how they are designed, the different type of loads, how it is coming. That is only when you want to do a very specific. It may not be coming to the need of a mining engineer, but when a mining engineer to manage the mines, they will have to manage the mechanical engineers and the maintenance engineers. When they are doing the maintenance engineering job properly or not, you must have this knowledge behind you. Then this Other elements, you know, that the power transmission shaft, that is the machine shaft, that how exactly the power will be transmitted, that is also known by the machine elements. Similarly, you have seen that this in the different elements in an engine, you are having a flywheel, that is from this engine shaft the power will have to be taken to this, so that you can see in the machine elements like in a car how the power is going from one end to another. You can see that these wheels are having an axle, we have got a propeller shaft, then we have got exactly intermediate propeller shafts can be there, and then we have got the front axle, that your differential carrier, so that again a power transmission system, such type of elements are made together to work with that. So then other thing is there in a machines, you will be having the coupling when your two rotating shafts which are at motion, if they are to be given a connections, they call the coupling. And then we have got in some cases the bearing is another part, when there is a shaft is to rotate, it is there will be the frictional loss will have to be minimum. So that is why different types of bearings are there. That is exactly how a shaft is mounted, that is it can be a journal bearing, it can be a rolling contact bearing, or it can be a hydrodynamic bearing. When the shaft around that the lubricant oil will be there, how this type of different types of bearing, how it works, you need to study for this. So that what is the purpose of this flywheel, because these machines at a different time there will be fluctuations of its motions and all, but here from this flywheel the power will be taken to your transmission system, and from the transmission system when it will be going to the main drive the component, whether you are driving it to wheel or it is driving it another machine part which could be a controllable, because these engines part directly cannot, if you connect the your operating part along with, you cannot do. So this flywheel, this side that shaft will be connected. So this type of things are there. So here another assignments I mentioned, you will have to do it, that is in a 2 weeks time you do this assignment, that select any machine that you are familiar with, describe its functions. It can be any machine including bicycle, car, dozer, crane or anything, and find out what are the main functional units and components, identify what are the loads, how do they fluctuate, what are the locations of concerns in that machine, what are the stresses that are in these locations, and then develop a conclusion and recommendations. This is when you will be doing, then ultimately you will be ready for studying machinery. So that is what this lecture has introduced you about the different machine elements, and so that whenever you see any machine working, you try to understand that what are the different parts working over there, and particularly the functional element and the power transmission elements are most important. In our next class, I will be discussing about some of these the power transmission systems, and then this activity you please do along with that activity which I have just said, the identify machine in your vicinity and explain its functions, describe its functional elements and components, draw sketches to describe its various joints and power transmission, identify various forces acting on the different components and types of motions available in that machine. If you do that, then it will be helping you to understand machines much better way. There are references, as I said, some of these textbooks are there, any mechanical engineering textbook, or you just go to the library, digital library, and go to the mechanical engineering handbook, and you can see that different machine elements are there, and also in the YouTube you can find lot of things for your studies. So I hope you have now understood that what is machine elements and why it is necessary to have a very good idea about these elements before going to start mining machinery. We are just preparing yourself to study mining machinery, where you will have to exactly do big decisions regarding productivity, safety, and also the investment, capital investment, how we will do in the mining industry. So, as an applied engineer, as a mining engineer, you will be managing the mines. So, these basic knowledge are very, very important. Thank you very much.